So let's start with Hilary Powell and Dan Edelstyn. Hilary is a printmaker and Dan is a filmmaker, and together they recently pulled off a community heist of the financial system of setting up their own bank. They printed money and exploded 1.2 million of local debt, really. You know, they got rid of it. So their feature film Bank Job was nominated for Gerson and a British Independent Film Awards 21, and it continues to be screened now. It led to the pair setting up Optimistic Funding, a CIC, a community interest company, and that was committed to investigating and tackling urgent economic, philosophical and social issues through anarchy and a joyful cultural production. So the heist continues to give themselves the power of the government and central banks to print money and unleash vital stimulus to build a power station, well, a solo refit power station and community wealth. Now, they are just in the process of launching a new currency called Greenbacks, which is an emergency currency demanding and taking action for the crises of our time. Now, I am really intrigued. I really genuinely am, and I'd love to know more. So, Hilary and Dan, I'm going to hand that over to you, please.
Oh, thank you. Unmuting. Yeah, thanks very much for having us. I think we're two of us sitting here, but our sharing of talking might be more on me to begin with. But anyway, yeah, we're an artist and filmmaker, and as you said, we recently did a bank job, which we kind of understood as a heist, working with our community in Walthamstow in northeast London to understand and intervene in an unjust economic system. And it was really a...
Shall I do a share screen?
Oh yeah, we'll do a share screen. So can everyone see the slides? Slideshow?
Yes, that's there.
Where's the slideshow? Oh, yeah.
So this was our bank.
Can you see that?
Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you.
So it was a project that took these big concepts like what is money, what is debt, how does the economy work, what is a creditocracy, and are we living in one? And then tried to make them accessible and open to discussion via joyful anarchic cultural production. So that really came through with the kind of way of framing the storytelling. No one wants to talk about debt, but everyone wanted to talk about a bank job, and making this alternative rebel bank, printing our own money that inverted accepted value systems, and celebrating those dealing with the fallout of an unjust economic system. So the people on the banknotes were Gary from a food bank, Syra from a homeless kitchen, Tracy from a primary school, and Steve and Josh from a youth project. And really having a public facing space and training and employing local people to kind of learn all these printmaking methods made all those big ideas become really real and tactile, and in turn malleable and open to question. So we became Hoe Street Central Bank and invited people in to participate in the production, which was also a film shoot because we were making the feature documentary film Bank Job that would be shared kind of wider than our local community. So within the project, we exchanged our money for sterling in order to support the local organisations on the notes, but also to buy up and destroy, inspired by strike debt in America, 1.2 million of local predatory debt. But that in itself was quite a quiet act of spreadsheets and logistics. So we really wanted to kind of pierce the public imagination and question the kind of dominant and accepted narratives around debt. So it was kind of critical for us to explode that debt quite kind of literally and symbolically in an action called Big Bang 2, which took place in front of the kind of towers of finance at Canary Wharf, and in reference to Big Bang of the 1986 kind of deregulation of the financial markets. So that became the kind of ending of Bank Job. We left the bank in 2018. We had a kind of fight to try and stay there and build it as a power bank, but we didn't manage that. So we left just before the pandemic, and then the film then has been released into the world in a book and continues to screen in communities, I think, around the world. But for us, we were kind of in lockdown, kind of forced back out of these public facing spaces into a terrace house, and began to think, what could we do from here? And kind of looking again at our habitat and the mutual aid networks that were growing, these WhatsApp groups on the street, and all that we'd learned through Bank Job, kind of reading Donut Economics and Anne Pettifor's case for the Green New Deal, really kind of started to grow in our minds as, and one particular sentence from the case for the Green New Deal, every building a power station. And we thought, yeah, why not? Why can't we make our house, our street into a power station? Obviously that's not that, it didn't just like come in an instant, but we began to kind of map and meet everyone on our street and kind of look again at these typical terraces that, you know, we happen to be in northeast London, but these Victorian accommodations in Britain that are the most kind of leaking and carbon emitting are everywhere. So really the project, like Bank Job, uses kind of a hook in a way, our street as a kind of microcosm of a larger society, and looks at the stories on the street from 100-year-old Dorothy, who kind of remembers when electricity first came to the street, kind of showing that these big infrastructural changes that are needed happen quickly when there is political will. So we began to model that street, really inspired by Ashley Dawson's people power and ideas of energy democracy. And I can't move the slide, just in the flow, hang on. And so it's been building over the last year with these plans to say kind of, can a London terrace street enact a Green New Deal powered by the community and the sun? And we're really inspired by solar punk ideas of infrastructure as resistance. So we're at the phase of kind of acting hyper locally, but really wanting to use the street as a template, but also demand to say, if this street can do it, why not the government do it on a bigger scale and kind of now? So we're giving ourselves again the power of government and central banks to kind of make those things happen. So we decided to do this after looking at lots of community energy models that wouldn't work in this situation, kind of go back to doing what we do best, which is kind of more mischievous production. And we're launching a second kind of new currency called the Greenbacks. And the promise on these notes is that 50% of the £1 million we hope to raise from their exchange for sterling will go into building this power station, and 50% into building community wealth. So as in Bank Job, these notes kind of involve quite intense process of meeting this kind of ecosystem of local organizations that are all working for economic, social justice, either kind of firefighting poverty and cuts, or building new models like from food co-ops to food banks. So we've been in a process of meeting and taking photos, and rather than the Bank Job, which featured kind of figureheads, these feature like people power in print, a kind of collective of faces across the notes. And we're at an exciting phase where all of these digital mock-ups that have come from researching like specific maps and designs and bringing it all together on the screen are now turning into reality as we print them this month in public again in Walthamstow, North London. So the colours are coming out of the Riso machine and the foil blockers, and the production space is whirring. And again, it's very public facing as we print UV security ink, very small as well. But so here's some details on the new banknotes. And it all's happening here in what is a working electricity substation owned by UK Power Networks, but there's a tiny space in the window that normally has revolving art exhibitions, but we've kind of taken over as our money printing facility, again training up a team of local people to work with us. And really this has opened up already, even in the last 2 weeks, just so much more possibilities of growing this power station. We're kind of inviting people to join by buying the Greenbacks, by joining our power membership, kind of learning alongside us as we kind of go through the trials and tribulations of trying to set something like this up and make it a real show and do project. So we kind of hope that our demand of every home a power station starts to go viral, and more people can join locally, nationally, and kind of take this as a kind of clarion call to say this kind of action needs to happen at scale and urgently across the country. So yeah, I kind of think, well, what did you want to say?
No, I'm all right, actually.
Sorry. Oh, I suppose I kind of wanted to return to that idea of solar punk, because that has been really critical, that this idea of infrastructure is resistance. And what we're really kind of feeling is that power, the whole project is essentially about transforming infrastructure, and not just like the physical, technical kind of solution infrastructure, but the infrastructures of our imaginations and of the stories that we tell, and deconstructing and going behind the scenes of the fossil capitalism, the neoliberalism that has kind of forced a way of thinking that makes it feel that there is no alternative, to kind of together realizing that there is, and that we can build that together. So I'll stop sharing.
You guys, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Hilary and Dan. I absolutely adored that. I think for me, what's really, really stayed with me is the fact that you're talking about every house, a powerhouse. It's like, wow, it's like just encouraging people to really, really step into their power. Absolutely adore it. Thank you so much. That was brilliant.